Forget everything you just heard on the news. Forget the triumphalist headlines. Forget the breaking news banners screaming about American victory in the Strait of Hormuz. Because what I am about to tell you is not what the Pentagon is briefing. It is not what the State Department wants on record. And it is categorically not what the mainstream media, which has not had a serious defense analyst on air in 2 decades, is capable of explaining to you. Amphibious Strike Group 1 moved through the Hormuz Command Line. And yes, the blockade is nominally over. But if you think that means America won last night, you have been dangerously misled. And by the time I finish walking you through exactly what happened in those waters, what it took, what it cost, and what it absolutely did not resolve, you are going to understand why the most dangerous phase of this entire confrontation is not behind us. It is directly ahead.
Let me be clear about something before we go any further, because this matters enormously to everything that follows. I have spent decades in military intelligence. I have been in rooms where decisions of this magnitude were made, where the maps were spread out, where the threat assessments were read aloud, where serious people in uniform calculated the precise margin between a successful operation and a catastrophic one. I know what it looks like when a military operation is genuinely brilliant, and I know what it looks like when a genuinely brilliant military operation is being sold to the public as something it is not. What happened in the Strait was without question one of the most operationally sophisticated naval maneuvers the United States has executed in the modern era, and simultaneously it is being used to construct a narrative about American victory that is not only premature, it is strategically reckless. If you are realizing right now that you are not getting this depth of analysis anywhere else, hit subscribe. This is the breakdown that matters when the system shifts beneath our feet. Stay with me. Let us start from the beginning. Let us start with what Amphibious Strike Group 1 actually is, what the Hormuz Command Line actually represents, and what the word infiltrated actually means in the context of last night's operation. Because until you understand those three things at a serious analytical level, you cannot understand anything else about what happened. The reality is that most people who hear the term Amphibious Strike Group picture something from World War II, landing craft soldiers wading through surf, the kind of imagery that Hollywood burned into a generation's collective memory. That image is not just outdated, it is 4 generations obsolete. ASG-1 is not a collection of landing ships waiting to storm a beach. It is one of the most lethal, most technologically integrated, most strategically versatile military formations ever assembled by any navy in the history of human civilization. At its core sites a massive amphibious assault ship, a vessel that functions in every practical military sense as a floating sovereign state. It launches fixed-wing aircraft, it deploys thousands of Marines, it conducts electronic warfare operations across a frequency spectrum wide enough to suppress an entire national air defense grid. It projects military power across a regional theater simultaneously in multiple domains. And surrounding that core vessel is a constellation of destroyers, attacks, submarines, cruisers, and support vessels that together constitute a unified weapons system of a complexity that most nations on Earth cannot even theoretically replicate. ASG-1 can conduct anti-submarine warfare, ballistic missile defense, precision land attack, strike operations, electronic suppression, and a full marine amphibious assault all at the same time, simultaneously in coordination without pausing any one capability to execute another. It is not a ship. It is a moving sovereign territory with the integrated firepower of a medium-sized nation-state. And the commanders moved that entire formation through 21 miles of the most heavily mined, most missile-saturated, most radar-dense contested waterway on the surface of this planet in darkness without a single publicly confirmed retaliatory shot from Iran. That either represents the most operationally brilliant naval execution since the Pacific campaigns of World War II, or it is the opening move in something far larger and far more dangerous than anyone in Washington is currently willing to say on the record. And based on everything the intelligence picture is telling those of us who know how to read it, the honest answer is that it is both. Now let us talk about the Hormuz Command Line specifically, because this term is being thrown around in every breaking news segment right now by people who have never once studied the integrated architecture it actually describes. The Hormuz Command Line is not a geographic boundary. It is not a dotted line on a nautical chart. It is a fully integrated network of Iranian military command control communications and intelligence systems that together constitute Iran's comprehensive ability to monitor, target, and destroy any vessel that enters the navigable channels of the strait. And it is not a system that was assembled hastily. It is a system that Iran has been building, hardening, testing, refining, and expanding for 30 consecutive years. Understanding it requires understanding its components individually before you can grasp why penetrating it even temporarily, even under ideal conditions, is an achievement of genuine consequence. The first component is the radar network. Iran operates a series of coastal radar stations positioned on the peninsula on the Iranian mainland coastline and critically on three strategically positioned islands that Iran controls within the strait itself. These three islands were seized from the UAE and have never been returned despite decades of diplomatic protests. They sit directly in the path of the world's most critical shipping corridor like guard towers over a maximum security perimeter. From those elevated positions, Iranian radar systems provide continuous overlapping coverage of every navigable lane in the strait, every surface vessel, every aircraft operating below certain altitudes, and every acoustic signature detectable in the shallow approaches to the waterway. There are no blind spots, there are no unmonitored angles. Any vessel entering the operational zone of the strait is known to Iranian command from the moment it enters radar range. The second component is the anti-ship missile network. Iran operates an extensive system of coastal defense missile batteries whose technical lineage traces back to Chinese technology, but which Iran has spent 2 full decades upgrading, modifying, indigenizing, and improving into something that is genuinely seriously dangerous to any surface vessel that enters their engagement envelope without active countermeasures. Positioned in hardened shelters dispersed across mobile launcher vehicles that can be repositioned within hours, integrated into a targeting architecture fed by the coastal radar network. These batteries give Iranian commanders the ability to engage multiple targets simultaneously across the full width of the strait's navigable channels from multiple overlapping directions. Defeating them is not simply a matter of speed or stealth. It requires active, sustained, precisely calibrated electronic suppression maintained for the entire duration of any contested transit. The third component is the fast attack craft network, and this is the one that keeps American naval planners awake at night more than any other element of Iran's architecture because it is the hardest to fully neutralize under operational conditions. The Revolutionary Guard Navy operates hundreds of small, fast, heavily armed patrol boats and fast attack craft that can operate from any coastal point along Iran's shoreline, from the occupied islands, from improvised forward positions that can be established with minimal lead time. These craft are lethal not because of any individual capability, but because of their swarming doctrine. The deliberate, coordinated use of mass numbers and unpredictable multidirectional attack vectors to overwhelm the point defense systems of larger vessels through sheer saturation. American naval wargaming of Iranian swarm scenarios in the Persian Gulf has repeatedly produced outcomes that serious analysts find deeply uncomfortable, which is precisely why those scenarios remain classified at levels that keep them off congressional testimony records. The fourth component is Iran's underwater sensor array, a network of acoustic detection systems deployed across the shallow bottom of the strait's approaches that provides Iranian commanders with real-time awareness of submarine movements, diver insertion operations, and the acoustic signatures of large surface vessels transiting the navigable channels. It is by regional standards a sophisticated system, though its design parameters reflect a threat calculus built around diesel-electric submarine detection rather than the acoustic signature of American nuclear attack submarines. A distinction that will become critically important when we get to the submarine dimension of last night's operation. And the fifth component, the one that ties all four of the above into a coherent, lethal integrated whole, is the underground command and control architecture that connects every sensor, every battery, every patrol craft, and every radar station into a unified operational picture available to Iranian military commanders in hardened facilities that have been specifically engineered to survive the opening strikes of an American air campaign. This command infrastructure is the nervous system of the entire Hormuz Command Line. Destroy the radar stations, but leave the command bunkers intact, and Iran can reconstitute targeting capability within days using mobile systems. Destroy the missile batteries, but leave the command nodes functioning, and replacement systems can be moved into position from interior stockpiles. The command architecture is deliberately redundant, deliberately dispersed, and deliberately hardened against exactly the kinds of precision strikes that American air power specializes in delivering. This is not an improvised defense. This is 30 years of strategic investment by a nation that understood from the moment the first Gulf War demonstrated American conventional military dominance that its long-term survival required making the strait too costly for any adversary to freely contest. And ASG-1 just moved through it in the dark, which means one of two things happened. And both of those possibilities examined honestly reveal something about this situation that the victory narrative being constructed right now is dangerously failing to communicate. The United States Navy's electronic warfare capability has been the most closely guarded operational secret in the American military arsenal for the better part of 4 decades. It can suppress, jam, deceive, spoof, and in certain configurations permanently destroy enemy radar and communication systems across a frequency range so broad and at power levels so high that it can render an entire naval battle group effectively invisible to enemy detection systems operating on any known emission frequency. Under the right conditions, with sufficient support, a naval formation can transit a heavily defended waterway and appear to Iranian radar operators as nothing more than background noise. The problem, and this is a problem that the triumphalist coverage is not addressing, is that the aircraft required for this is carrier-based. It requires a full deck carrier to operate from, and ASG-1 is not a carrier strike group. It is an amphibious strike group. It has fighters aboard. It has Harriers. It has Ospreys. It does not have organic electronic warfare capability, which means that if electronic suppression was the mechanism, and all the available indicators suggest that it was a primary mechanism that allowed ASG-1 to transit the command line without triggering Iranian retaliatory fire, then there was a level of interforce coordination happening in the background of this operation that the public reporting has not yet come close to capturing. Iran's decision not to engage ASG-1 was the most sophisticated form of strategic restraint executed under extraordinary pressure by people who understood with perfect clarity that winning the battle would mean losing everything they have built and potentially losing the institutional survival of the Islamic Republic itself. That is not weakness. That is the discipline of a strategic culture that has learned through 4 decades of pressure and conflict and sanctions and proxy warfare to distinguish between the battle that advances your position and the battle that ends your existence. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you want to stay updated, and tap the video on your screen right now.